What is Buddhism? Maybe I make that an open question. What do you guys think Buddhism is? What is it about? Anybody want to risk an answer? Not really. All right. So, Buddhism obviously is a word that comes from Buddha, and Buddha is not really the name of somebody, it is a title. So, a Buddha is somebody that is enlightened, somebody that so it basically means the enlightened one. So there were many Buddhas and there might be more Buddhas in the future, but there is one that we especially like, is called the primordial Buddha, or the original Buddha, which is Shakyamuni Buddha. And actually next session we'll talk about his life and all of that. But what we have to remember there is that Buddha is not a god. Buddha is just a guy. He's just a man. And he is a man that found a way to suffer less. Actually, he was a prince, and when he came in contact with suffering, he had never experienced it too much in his castle before. So he gave this subject a lot of thought, and so as I said, we will tell the whole story soon. But basically, he found a formula that if you apply that, and if you apply that mental discipline, you should stop suffering in your life. And obviously, if you remove the suffering from your life, you're creating more space for joy. So it's also a path of happiness. But really, in the end, what Buddhism is taking responsibility for yourself. Buddhism is about taking responsibility not only for your deeds, but also for your thoughts, and taking responsibility for your words. Because, like, a thought is often the seed of a word, and a word is often the seed of a deed. And every wars of the world have started with a thought first, right? So Buddhism is kind of an introspective method. First of all, to get to know what is really going on in your mind and in your heart, and to learn to manage your own sanity. The goal is to restore your basic sanity. So it may sound very self-centered. It may sound very, even maybe selfish. I'm trying to become enlightened, and I'm fixing myself, and I don't care too much about the world. But it comes from a realization that if we truly want to change the world, we have to change ourselves first. So if I don't make that work, and my neighbor doesn't make that work, and nobody works on themselves, what kind of world are we going to have? Well, one that is pretty close to the one that we do have, where competitiveness is everywhere, where people, well, fish eat fish, right? So it's about who has more money, who has more power, who lives in the best society with the most services. And obviously, well, that as Gandhi once said, an eye for an eye leaves the entire world blind. That's kind of what we apply in the world right now. So if you encounter Buddhism and you decide instead to work on yourself, you're kind of stopping this vicious circle. You say, all right, no, I am going to manage my thoughts. I'm going to manage my words, and I'm going to manage my deeds. And if I am not saving all the whales and stopping climate change, at the very least, I'm not going to contribute more evil to the world. From this basic sanity that I discover, I will start operating instead of being reacting to everything around me. So that's one aspect of Buddhism. And to get there, you kind of have to reverse engineer your entire being. You got to understand very well how our perceptions work, how you relate to the world through your senses. You have to understand how those senses are processed by your mind and what they trigger in your brain. Fortunately, now we're like 15,000 years later than the foundation of Buddhism, because they say that there was a Buddha before Shakyamuni, but several thousand years anyway. And we have science, we have medical research, we have many findings that can back up what Buddhists have been saying for thousands of years. So it's going to be much clearer to you than it ever was. We have terms like perception and cognition and ego, and all of these things didn't exist before. They had other terms, sometimes a lot more subtle, a lot more open to interpretation. But basically, you will learn the mechanic of your mind, from the sense perception to the cognition to how the emotions arise, what the emotions trigger in you, how they somebody says that emotion is energy in motion. So emotion moves you, takes your body and your entire being to do something. So you can look at yourself from the four holistic point of views of mind, heart, body, and spirit, and start to pick yourself apart from these 4 points of view. That's some sort of Buddhism. It's a good start. It's a good start. And as you pick yourself apart, then you will notice your habits. You will notice your habitual reactions. You will notice what triggers you. You will notice, basically, whenever you're on autopilot, will become more and more obvious. Whenever you hurt yourself or hurt others, will become more and more obvious. And just the act of seeing will be your therapy that you're doing to yourself. You're going to start losing those habits because they simply do not make sense, and they won't make sense to you when you recognize them. You know, people who recovered from heroin addiction through Buddhism, or all kinds of addiction. I've known people. Are you slowly walking away from me, Julia? So she has decided to watch a movie in the back, I think. No worries. So people with very difficult conditions like depression, mood disorders, problems with self-image, problems with self-identity have all been corrected through this gentle path without medication. And I'm not by no means telling people today that they shouldn't get medical attention. Obviously, that should be the first door you knock on. But they are often treating the symptoms or the short-term manifestation, while Buddhism will help treat long-term conditions or recurring patterns in your life. So that's one aspect of it. Now, doing that for a number of years, Buddhism, by the way, is a slow path. Don't expect wonderful result within a couple of weeks. It simply won't happen unless you're extremely talented. But you will find differences in your perception, in your view of the world consistently. So over the years, what you will develop is an incredible emotional resilience. Basically, it will be very difficult to woo you. It will be very difficult for you to stumble or get depressed or get shaken by life, because as the emotions or as the difficult feelings arise, you will manage them, and you will learn to do judo with them. And what happens is, in a way, it becomes a little bit boring, because where before you cried and you yelled and you were hitting the walls of your house or scratching and biting, now you basically just laugh, because you catch yourself in the act of getting triggered and in your unhealthy reactions. So what happens is that you start looking for trouble, and the best trouble to find is, I guess, other people's trouble. That's why in Buddhism there is another level of people that are looking for enlightenment, who are called the Bodhisattvas. the literal translation, I think, are those who carry the essence of enlightenment. And the keyword there is carry, because um, they make a vow to slow down their own process of realization so that they can help one another. So basically, instead of retiring to a cave or to the woods and deciding to live happy forever, they say, well, no, some people are still suffering and I'm gonna teach them the way. So it's putting yourself back into problems. It's putting yourself back with people that are suffering and trying to educate them on how they can manage themselves better and cut the roots of their suffering, so that the patterns stop repeating in their lives as well. Now there's what I would call what is to me a third level, which I like to call the peaceful warrior, where you and these are, I think, powerful words, at least they are to me, where you decide to walk the world with a broken heart and a smile, because life is difficult, life is suffering, many things happen all around us that we do not agree with, and it's not fun to look at. So that's the broken heart part. We cannot help but feel that, right? But then from this, because of my newfound resiliency, I don't have to give up. Just because there is a war in my country doesn't mean that I have to put myself in a fetal position and cry in the basement. Actually, if I'm in the context of a war, people need my help, people need food, people need medical attention, people need love and affection. So the peaceful warrior says, look, since I don't suffer so much anymore, or since I know how to handle extreme suffering, I will go and I will expose myself to these situations, because this is where people most need me. So that's like a high level of the Bodhisattva expression. Now, to be a Buddhist, you don't have to just be a Buddhist. It is called a religion because the word religion comes from Latin ligar, which my Spanish-speaking friends immediately know that it kind of means to tie a knot or to link. So religion is like religar, or to link back, which means to reconnect. What are we reconnecting with? Well, we call it our essential nature, our Buddha nature in Buddhism, but I will just call it basic human sanity. Buddhism is a religion because it allows you to reconnect with your basic human sanity. Before cell phones, before social networks, and before virtual reality, there was a pretty straightforward world, and filled with pretty straightforward beings. And we have lost that. And the fact that I have a giant chicken, a bunny, and that we're in virtual reality kind of illustrate that. Now it's not straightforward as it was. In fact, in Buddhism, they refer to daily life as samsara, which is the cycle of birth and death. But just think of it as a pattern that repeats itself, a pattern of suffering. So, I'm young, I go to school, I get indebted, then I have to work to pay my debts. At one point, I need a retiring fund. Then I'm a slave to that, and then when I start to travel a little bit, usually I die, and that's over with. So we keep ourselves running in the hamster wheel, which is a very good illustration of samsara most of our lives. So what do? We look for pleasure, and these worlds where we can do whatever we want on whatever type of house we want, be as tall, as beautiful, or as sympathetic as we want, is an expression of that. That is an expression of the dissatisfaction that we have with our real life. If you were perfectly happy with your day today, there would be no reason whatsoever to even approach a computer, right? And in fact, all of us have those days where we go have a walk in the woods or spend time with family or travel to another country where we don't really care about technology and connecting. So it's very interesting to me to be here, and this is kind of the reason for this sangha, is that if you think about it, here we are twice removed from reality. So it's like samsara to the power of two, and I think it's an incredibly interesting environment to work on that. And I don't know if you guys noticed walking around, but I've seen people here, and I've been here only weeks, right? But I've seen a lot of people here that were shy. I've seen people that to me felt a little bit like sociopath, like they didn't know how to interact with others. I felt, that there were all kinds of people, and that some of them really lived more here than they did at home. And that convinced me that I needed to be here, that I needed to fill this room over the next weeks and help people develop a greater sense of happiness, peace, and love in their life. So that's what this sangha is about, really. Now, I was saying, to be a Buddhist, you don't have to be just a Buddhist. You can be Catholic, you can be a Muslim, you can be a Jew. There is no God in Buddhism, so my God won't fight with yours. I don't have any. It is just a mental discipline that you can add upon the ideals that you already have. And a funny thing that happens in Buddhism is that people that come from other tradition, when they start learning about Buddhism, they start understanding their tradition because of the way that the explanations are made, because it's an experiential path that make you try everything that is said every step of the way. Then people realize that what Jesus was saying, or what Mohammed was really meaning. Right? So it's good fusion. Also, Buddhism doesn't care if you're tall or short, if you're gay or straight, if you're blue, white, or black. There is nothing like this in Buddhism. There's no caste system. There is no belief. In fact, the number one enemy of Buddhism, if there was such a thing, is division. So the minute that I'm using a word that ends in ism, such as racism, sexism, even Buddhism, if I define myself too strongly as being part of Buddhism, I am splitting myself from the rest of the world. In fact, if I say I'm a boxer, I'm splitting myself from everybody that is not a boxer. If I say I'm a hockey player, you see, the minute that I define myself and put myself in a box, then there are those inside the box and there are those outside of the box. So that's a very un-Buddhist thing to do, to put people in boxes and to put ourselves in boxes. So I wouldn't know of any other system that discriminate less, actually, about where people come from. So I guess that's what Buddhism is to me. Myself, I come from the Shambhala Tradition, which was founded by the first Tibetan monk to live in America in the 60s. It was called Shogam Trungpa Rinpoche. And he basically looked at our society and invented a branch of Buddhism that would fit our needs. He saw that this society, for example, liked psychology, so he merged Western psychology with Tibetan Buddhism. And he also saw that our society didn't have as many complicated rituals. I'm talking obviously about the North American society. So instead of going Tibetan Buddhism all the way, he blended it with Zen, which is about nothing really. Zen is a naked path to enlightenment. And he created something quite interesting, but the central point of Shambhala. Shambhala, by the way, is in Buddhist mythology, is the enlightened realm where all the enlightened people live together and enjoy a wonderful life. It's supposed to be an invisible world that exists, and that is also that is only accessible to those enlightened beings. And so he created the Shambhala warrior path. So I was talking about the peaceful warrior form. So Shambhala is also kind of inspired by the samurai path, where you have like a code of honor, and a lot of it is about fearlessness and about courage and about basically showing up and facing difficulties without flinching. And that spoke to me. That I've always liked putting myself out there for others. I also was conscious of my weaknesses, and I saw in that path strong, but in the good sense, not harder, but made more flexible in life. That's the kind of warriorship I'm talking about, flexibility. And so I followed this path. I learned everything I could, heard and saw everything I could about Shokunkwa. Then followed one of his students, who's Pima Children, who's very popular in the United States, and now Pima just retired. I think she's like 85 years old, and there is no. There is not a new master to me that was as good as those two. So I got permission from the remaining Shambhala masters to split, and they encouraged me actually to create my own study group and my own manga. And so about a year ago, I created the Fudoshin Institute, which teaches to live consciously to top executives around the world. And I wanted to do some charity work as well, so I'm starting with this little sangha, but there will be another one on Zoom that's going to happen while we're in pandemic. We're all going to do everything online. So that's it. Any questions so far? Everything clear?
Very.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And if I just ask, I'm sorry?
Even some parts were a little funny. It's really good.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe you would like to present yourself, to introduce Senkei Senpai a little bit more.
Me? Oh, yeah, I can do that. And then, yeah, let's do a quick round table.